Hey everybody, this is Flavio Romeo, and on this episode of the Towncast, we had the chance to go to Ridgewood, right on Maple Ave, and talk to Tanvi Matthew, who runs the Emerge Counseling and Coaching Center. And we talked about the mental health crisis that has just overtaken this country, and really got into in-depth conversation about some of these issues. So I think you're going to enjoy the episode. All right. Be well, everybody. All right, so here we are. We're in Ridgewood. We're on North Maple Ave, 61 North Maple Ave, and we are with Tanvi Matthew, right? Matthew?
Yes.
Tanvi Matthew, and she runs this place. It's Emerge. I want to get the name right. The Counseling and Coaching Center.
Yes.
And we're going to get into a lot of details because it's now that mental health has now become. Finally, it's become part of the vernacular. It's part of the discussions that people have, and with so many deaths and suicides and overdoses and so many issues that are around mental health crisis. I feel like, oh yeah, we have a mental health crisis, but underneath that umbrella, it's like 1,000 things to address. So tell me a little bit about Emerge. Like what type of things do you guys cover here?
So the basis of what we see here at Emerge is anxiety, stress, and depression, right?
That's 3 on my list. So.
Which is something very common that we all experience. But do we all acknowledge it and do we all address it? A lot of times over the years, what we've seen is people just kind of, let it run its course and accept it for what it is and try not to acknowledge it, right?
I'll come out of it.
We try to brush it under the rug, and we put on a good facade, and we can present ourselves well in public, but it creates a lot of underlying issues. What happens to us emotionally and mentally, we're experiencing physically. Right. So it all physically manifests, and when that happens, it's our body saying, listen to me, pay attention. So usually that's the presenting factor when we get our phone calls, but then we take a look at what's the root cause. Where is your anxiety stemming from? Where's your stress coming from? Why are you experiencing the depressive episodes? And a lot of times it's environmental factors, social, socioeconomic, financial, just self-reflection, confidence issues, self-esteem, growth, figuring out your identity. And as we work through it, we come across so many different things that we begin to work on and help people really identify and get a grasp on better.
Are those the big three? Like
those are
anxiety,
the big 3.
Stress, and depression.
Yes. And then
I feel like all 3 are related because you have stress, then you get anxious, and then you get depressed.
Yeah. So a lot of times people use anxiety and stress interchangeably. They just say, "Oh, I have stress and anxiety," but they're 2 different things. Anxiety is worry, it's fear, right? It's
fear. Yeah, you get anxious because fear of the unknown, fear of what's going to happen at work or at home or wherever.
It usually makes us feel jittery somewhere in our body, right? Okay. Where stress is more pressure, pressure to accomplish something.
So that's like more downward.
Yes. Yeah. So with pressure, we feel more tense. We feel that tightness. You get the knots in your back. You get the headaches. You get the jaw clenching. You get a lot of that restless leg syndrome as well with both of those.
Right. But the bouncy leg.
But they're used interchangeably because one can cause the other.
Now this is not for you, this police siren. It's not.
No, it's not.
So we'll continue. That's good. That's good to know.
And depression is feeling very low, withdrawn, isolated. A lot of times when people can't get a grasp on their anxiety and stress, they kind of withdraw and isolate and try to wait for it to pass.
Yeah, and you deal with bipolar
We work with bipolar.
as well.
We have a lot of eating disorders, right? And eating disorders are not just eating disorders. They also stem from somewhere. So
Everything stems from somewhere. And
Everything.
That's the problem, is that, most people, either they feel like they can harness it and get it under control, but a lot of the times it's things that may have happened years ago
Yeah.
that they've never addressed, that they've just kind of buried
In your subconscious, yeah.
and it's down there just eating away at your insides. Yeah.
And what happens is there's triggers, right? That releases that from the
Right.
subconscious, and we don't always identify those
Right,
triggers when
right.
they're happening. A lot of times people will say, "Well, I don't know why this is coming up now. It happened years ago."
Right. So then you think, well, what's happened in the last
Yeah.
couple of weeks that,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
could be a situational thing at home. It could be something at
Yeah.
work, something someone says that triggers a certain thing.
It creates like a deja vu moment,
Right.
right? That releases it from the subconscious. But we always say that mental health is the most complex part of us. It's invisible. You can't see it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easy to ignore. It's not like a lot of these other physical diagnoses where, I have chest pain, am I having a heart attack? Let me go to a cardiologist, and you know what, like I'm going to get a stent put in, or I'm going to have a bypass, or there's cholesterol medication,
Yeah.
and that's it. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
We have capability of ignoring it, pretending it's not happening. We can put on a good show for people, for a brief period of time, and then when we retrieve, we're still stuck with ourselves.
Right. It's still there. It
It's
doesn't
like
go
a shadow.
away.
We can't. It's just like a shadow. We can't run from ourselves.
And at least when you're able to, someone comes here, they talk to you, and they're able to see what it is that's been causing this. At least then, I mean, it never goes away. It's still a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can identify it and say, okay, so I see. So this, what just happened now, is triggering this that happened. Yeah, yeah. So being able to unfold that and open it up and be able to say, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, and being prepared and proactive. That's what we want to do. We want to be proactive
Yeah.
in recognizing that, okay, this is something that could happen. Now, how in the future, if it surfaces again, how am I going to work through it? How am I going to identify what's happening?
Yeah. Now they have a website. It's the whole thing, right? It's Emerge
Counseling,
Counseling
NJ.com.
NJ.com. Okay, so it's emergecounselingnj.com. I did get a chance to go on, and I noticed that you were New Jersey's favorite kids doc.
Yeah, we got that a few years.
Yeah, you got that a couple of. So tell me, so you work with kids as well as adults?
Yeah. So over the past 2 years, I've kind of transitioned out of working with kids. I'm working more with parents, adults, and couples. But we do have 2 therapists here who are wonderful. I've mentored them for over 10 years, Catherine Pines and Shanta Dastadar.
Shout out Catherine and
Shanta.
Shanta.
We're currently sitting in Catherine's office. I'm sure she doesn't mind. So yeah, they're great. They work with teens, adolescents, and college students.
See, that to me, my heart goes out to kids, because that's where I feel like so much of their development, and not only physically, but also emotionally, mentally. And when there are issues that they're not dealing with at a young age, that's when things keep getting buried deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And as you get older, it's so deep that you don't even realize it's there anymore. So my heart always goes out to kids that are dealing with this. You hear so many stories of teen suicides, or teen overdoses, or young adult overdoses, or young adult suicides. And in your opinion, there's nothing that can't be addressed, right? There's nothing that could have happened in someone's life that can't be addressed, talked about, and at least try to help them in that regard.
There's always a good choice that we can make. The first choice might not work, the second choice might not work, but there's an option out there.
But
for
keep working.
everyone.
Keep working.
And it's hard to keep working, right? When you're in a depressive state, it feels very exhausting. It feels like there are no options. But that's the time when we have to keep ourselves vulnerable, and we allow people to support us and take care of us. And I say us because we as humans, we all experience mental health in different forms. At some point in time, we will all feel what depression is.
Yeah.
It might be a brief period of time. some people, it happens repeatedly, in extended periods of time, but we will all experience it. So it's important for us to have that empathy. You don't always have to go to a therapist. Support looks different to everyone, but we have to search for it.
And you know, it's when the kids are going through something, for the parents, they're going through it because there's that helplessness.
Yes.
You know, feel like I can't get to them, I can't help them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you address that as well with the parents.
Yeah. And myself being a parent, you know, having an almost teen and 2 younger daughters, it's a lot.
3 kids.
I have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 7. They're my whole world. And my husband and I constantly, communication is key every single day. We have to make sure that, we want to make sure, and we want to implement that in their daily life. We check in, not just how's your day, because that's just such an easy question.
Right,
and the answer is always like,
great.
It's good, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know?
You're a therapist. You know how to ask deeper questions than how was your day.
Oh yeah. I'll go and, you know, I'll harass my kids to talk to me.
Yeah.
But it's important for us to pay attention. You don't want to just look down and, you know, while you're prepping dinner, ask them how they're doing. You want to look at them in the face and make sure they're really okay, because their face is going to tell you.
There are signs.
Yeah. Their energy is going to tell you what's happening.
Something happened at school. Tell me what happened. Yeah.
And it's important for us to talk about our day too, because
they see it in your face.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I've had a lot of those moments.
Yeah.
Where my face was not so good.
Yeah. And now my kids are in tune with it.
Dad, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing's wrong. Really? Yeah. But even just to be able to talk to somebody as a parent that's going through, you know, issues with their children, you know, and there's a lot of them. I mean, you know, you have 3 kids, there's a lot of issues. So being able to talk to somebody, you know, fortunately, your husband has you. You're a therapist. That's
he
great.
doesn't want me. He doesn't want me. Yeah. He's like, I know what you're doing.
Stop therapying me.
Yeah.
Stop analyzing me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's important. I mean, for the parents to get the same help that their kids need, you know, for them to be able to better be equipped, because there's no handbook.
No.
I mean, that's the crazy thing is, you know, when you go to get your driver's license, you have to study the book, you have to pass the test, you have to get behind then you have to have a road test, and you have to pass all that, and then you get your license to drive. When you get married and have kids, there's no book.
Yep.
This doesn't teach you, well, what are you going to do if this happens? I don't know. You know, you're just winging it.
So let me tell you something. The one biggest thing that I discuss with parents when they come in is, if you don't deal with your stuff, you're not going to be able to help your kids. Our kids have such strong observation skills, you know, and they're very insightful, more than we realize. Just because they don't talk about it all the time doesn't mean they don't see it and they don't understand it, right? So if we're angry and we're anxious, we're stressed, and this is how they're seeing that we're responding to situations that are happening around us, that's what we're teaching them.
Right.
And that's why
we're modeling.
See,
that's what we're modeling.
We are. That's exactly what it is. We're modeling for them, right? And then that's why we see that it carries on generation after generation. Where I have a lot of people that will often tell me, well, anxiety runs in my family. It's kind of like saying high blood pressure runs in my family, or like every, you know.
Right.
But no, anxiety is something that we can control. It's, you know, it's more behavioral than we realize.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. So now I'm going to go. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Clifton, New Jersey. And then we moved to Hawthorne.
Did you go to Clifton High School?
Yes, I did.
All right. Shout out to Clifton High School. I'm not
Clifton.
gonna ask you what class you were in. You can shout out your class, but that's completely up to you.
I love my Clifton. But we moved to Hawthorne after I got married. My husband grew up in Hawthorne. And I've been there for about 13 years now. Love it. It's a great small community, tight-knit. You know, so we always use the support of our friends and family around town. It's great.
And how did you get involved in this? Was this something that you wanted to do from an early age, or how did the whole thing of, I want to help people, I want to do this, how did that all come about? Because you got I noticed you have a lot of initials after your your name, so there's a lot of studying that went on.
So when originally I wanted to be a physical therapist, and and then I realized like I don't have that much interest because I really wanted to do something where I could make a difference. I wanted to get in there, and I was that person that wanted to change the world.
Right.
Good
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one person at a time.
One person, even if it's one person, right? That makes a big
exactly.
impact. But when I was in undergrad, I did a dual degree in psychology and psychiatric rehabilitation.
Where'd you go to school?
It was between Kane University and it used to be University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. Now Rutgers took over.
Oh, okay.
So I did my Bachelor of Science, and psychiatric rehabilitation is exactly what it is. I mean, we got into it like learning about the grassroots of mental health and how it came about and what people were doing in New Jersey and nationally for mental health. And we visited Greystone Psychiatric Hospital. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Wow, yeah, I have heard of it. So tell a little bit about Greystone.
It's out in Parsippany. Oh my God, it's ages now, right? Since I've been there, maybe 2003 is when we went. And that was the institution for psychiatric patients back then. And they would keep them locked up.
When we were kids, we used to call it the loony bin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't call it that now.
Incorrect.
So
Please don't refer
now.
to it. Yes.
Yeah.
And when I visited and I saw like what the situation was, I was like, wow, this is insane. This is how people were treated, and because there's not much known about mental health, right? When they started it, and they didn't know what to do with them, and the way they showed us was the further back you were, was the more psychotic you were.
Further back in the building?
In the building,
oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And, we got a taste of that. And then I also worked for a psychiatric home right after that where there was active psychosis with the patients. And it was really interesting because what people would run away from, I was gravitating towards. Right. And I developed such amazing relationships with these adults who, it was like a revolving door for them.
Yeah.
They would go into the hospital, they would come back, they could never be left on their own, constantly medicated for years. So, I really empathized and I really connected, and I started building relationships. And then after that, I got into working with children, which I did for about 14 years, and that was amazing. And I started advocating hard for them. Always fighting with everybody over at DCF. Eventually over time what happened was I got married, I started having kids, and it became very stressful, and it started impacting my personal life. So
it's hard to detach.
Emotionally, I was constantly in it.
It's not like if you're a doctor or you're a surgeon, you do your work, and then and then you walk away and you go home, and that's there, that's left there.
Yeah, and especially when you're working with children, you build these relationships.
And then you have your own children.
And then I had my own children, and my husband and I made a decision that it was time for me to step away, and we started to build this practice. Yeah. And
so how long have you been involved in this
private practice?
Yeah.
I've been in private practice for 8 years, and when I transitioned out of my full-time job 4 years ago, that's when we created Emerge Counseling and Coaching Center.
But how long have you been doing this for your life?
Oh my gosh.
Like when you got out of school?
What is that, like almost 20 years now?
20 years?
Oh, not 20, maybe close to 20 years.
All right. So you started when you were like 10 years old.
18 years old.
10, 12 years old you were.
18 years, yeah.
So you started, and you obviously you had a passion for it.
I love it.
Over the years, so you started probably somewhere in the mid-2000s, right? So over the years, what have you seen change in mental health? Because now it's so forefront. Everybody talks about mental health crisis. Mm-hmm. What have you seen change from then to now?
I think the stigma is definitely starting to lift a little bit, right? This pandemic, as horrible as it was, has been a blessing in disguise because people are more open to
shining some light.
Yeah. So we're seeing that change for sure. People being more open to it. The accessibility to social media, it has its pros, but it also has a lot of its cons. Because people are getting a lot of ideas. There's a lot of negative things happening on social media. We were just talking about
Well,
Discord before.
Yeah.
Snapchat, all of that.
Well, especially for kids. The pressure for kids.
TikTok.
Yeah, and you see all these videos of, these gorgeous women or gorgeous men, and then boys and girls are having these identity crises.
Yeah, well, that's where a lot of the body image stuff is also starting to stem from.
So you've seen that grow over the years.
Yeah,
that's been a big part of it.
Yeah.
And the pandemic. I know the pandemic raised a lot of awareness to domestic abuse.
Yes.
And I feel like that's swept under even a deeper carpet. No one ever talks about that, and yet, it's something that clearly affects the entire family. Whether it's physical, mental, sexual, whatever it is, whatever abuse is happening, it affects everybody. It's a tremendous ripple effect. So you work with those, with people that are struggling with that as well.
With the domestic abuse as well, but I do have a great colleague who has her own practice over in Midland Park, Julia Hochstadt. She's great. She works specifically with domestic abuse and violence. She works with the women. She's amazing. So shout out to her. She's not affiliated with my practice, but she's an amazing colleague and friend. But yeah, we do. We see it all. We see the sexual assault victims, a lot of it that creeps up after. A lot of times people will disclose for the first time as an adult, sitting in our office, months after session starts, they'll say, no, I never talked about this, but something happened to me when I was 15 or when I was 18.
Oh, and that's a tragedy. I mean, and you probably know, you know the stats a lot better than I do, but just the things that I've read, it usually comes out when you're an adult, either nearing midlife or 40s, 50s, 60s is finally, so they've carried this for 20, 30, 40 years of pain. And if there was a way that you can get to that as a child, as a child, when the child is experiencing that, like when they're 15 or 14 or 13, whatever it is, and to be able to work with them at that age, who knows what their life would have been like. Yeah. So what do you feel like? What's the biggest thing other than stress, anxiety, and depression among teenagers or even young adults? Is there a certain thing that's coming out more than?
Yeah, what we are seeing over the past few years is just identity.
Yeah.
Who am I? Where do I belong? How do I belong? How do I become? So what impacts the identity is what's happening around them socially, environmental factors, what's the fad right now currently, and a lot of people become these followers, and they kind of pull away from who they might want to be themselves, and they lose themselves, which again creates this, what you just said before, this ripple effect of, where was I and where am I now? We kind of like snowball so far out that we don't even know where it started.
Yeah.
So the identity piece is a big one, not just for young adults, but I even see it with adults in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I work with people up into their 60s, mid-60s, and that's a big question. Did I live my life the way I wanted to, or did I live my life the way I was told to?
Good point. Yeah.
So a lot of those conversations are opening up now. Just not feeling comfortable and right in their own skin with all the conversation, because again, there's such a big conversation about mental health right now that it's seeping in and it's making them question.
Yeah, it's opening a lot more doors of communication. Now, you mentioned stigma before. I know you're involved with Stigma Free.
Yes, in Hawthorne.
Okay, so you see the signs. I see them all over the place. I have no idea what they mean. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what Stigma Free is, because a lot of communities are adopting this now.
Yeah.
They're starting, with Stigma Free, but I don't know that a lot of people, and I know I can't be the only one that doesn't really understand what that is, so maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Stigma Free is basically breaking the stigma, right? We want to be all inclusive. We want people to feel accepted. Race, creed, gender, sexuality. We want everyone to feel inclusive in our community. It's important. And we realize that when you're not inclusive, how it can impact somebody's mental health. So we're working, we just had a big Stigma Free walk in May. Jim Bushoven, I'm sorry, Jim, I just butchered your name for a second. He's always putting things out there, different events that are going on to work on. And it's great. It's a lot. Overall, it discusses what the mental health component is, and we want to make sure that people are being taken care of. People realize that there's support in the community. I know they're in the process of redoing the website to give the resources that are out there, because there's so many resources that parents and families don't know that there's access to.
Yeah, because I feel like parents sometimes feel helpless.
Yeah.
You're just talking about kids that are dealing with identity and they're looking at TikTok and Snapchat and all these different social media platforms, and they're just lost. They're lost. They don't even know who they are anymore.
Yeah.
Because I want to be this person, but that and I feel like as a parent, it's they're so detached from that. And part of it is that it's technology. So you're older and you're not familiar with technology, and but it's just to be able to have those conversations with your kids and be able to at least unpack what they're going through and understand and help them out. And is that the kind of stuff that Stigma Free, like, it's just opening doors to that kind of communication? Opening
a lot of doors, recognizing what's out there, where to get the support, who to get the support from.
Yeah. Is there what is the website, do you know? I could look it up. I'll look it up, and I'll put it right underneath us right here. And if you're, every town is starting to put these stigma-free programs together. I know Glen Rock, I think Ridgewood too, right?
Ridgewood,
yeah. So they have these stigma-free programs. So just Google it, and look up stigma-free in whatever town you're in, whatever state you're in, whatever country you're in, and see what they're doing to help this, because I feel like when it comes to mental health, things have been more open than they ever have before. You've been in it for years, so do you feel that? Do you feel like there's more open communication, like
so now when we're at gatherings, family gatherings, social gatherings, people will come up to me and say, hey, do you have a therapist I can go to? Anybody
really?
You can recommend? Yeah. It happens so commonly now.
Really? More than it's ever happened.
I need someone, or, I've been seeing my therapist, and this is what my therapist is saying, and what do you think? Asking me for a second opinion, like, like I'm a podiatrist, and I'm going to...
Let me look at your bunion.
Yeah. But it's definitely, the doors are opening up. I think it's so great. There's nothing to be ashamed of to talk about. It's something that's happening to us.
Yeah.
And we should feel empowered to know that we're willing to change.
Yeah. If someone that's watching, someone that's listening, if they are going through something and they don't know what to do, can they call here? Can they call you up?
Yeah, absolutely. I get phone calls, I get Facebook messages, I get Instagram messages. People reach out to me on my website. If you want to call me, you can call me at 551-775-0575.
All right, so 551 775
0575.
0575, and they'll call you here in the office.
Yeah.
And they could ask for you or any of your other...
No, you'll speak directly to me.
Oh, so you'll speak to Tanvi.
You get direct communication with us.
And you'll give them, you'll give them a consultation.
So if somebody wants a consultation, we do provide a 30-minute consultation.
How much
over
is
the
that?
phone. It's free. It's over the phone. And the reason for the consultation is we don't want somebody to just come in and then it's not what they expected.
Right. Yeah.
Therapy is something that's very personal, right? And people become very vulnerable when they're sitting in a session. So we want to make sure it's a good fit. Someone might be looking for someone who's more direct, and I might not be that person, or more compassionate, and I might not be that person. So you have to make sure you feel that vibe.
Right, so they can call you up and chat with you for a half hour, let them know, here's what's going on, and then... So listen, guys, it's a great opportunity just, for a free consultation. And, therapists are not inexpensive, but it's worth it. I mean, it's your mental health.
It is.
And and it manifests in so many other ways. I mean, you know, you
Yep.
look at a lot of the things you cover, you know, mental health, it's anxiety, abuse, depression, trauma, eating disorders,
Yeah.
and even things like, I like that you put major life changes.
Yeah.
You know, then that could be a baby, that could be moving into a new house, a new neighborhood,
Yeah.
a new job, you know, all these major life changes that we don't have the tools to figure out how to deal with those stresses and
Yeah.
anxieties
Yeah.
of those things.
About 75% of people, before they come to see a therapist, because there's so much resiliency there, they will go see every specialist under the sun.
The body, for their body.
Yeah, they'll
Really?
go see a cardiologist because they've
Chest pains. I have chest pains.
They'll go to a neurologist for headaches or nerve pain or physiatrist. They'll go to a dermatologist because their skin is
Breaking
breaking
out.
out. Chiropractor. GI is the biggest one,
Right.
because of gut health.
Oh yeah. Something.
Everybody has IBS.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
But yeah, they go to everyone under the sun, and then they finally come see a therapist, and they start talking. Not just me, just in general. They'll go see a therapist, and they start to feel relief.
And you said it earlier. Your body gives you the warning signs.
Yes.
Your body tells you.
Yes.
It's not necessarily, you had too much Chinese food or too much Mexican
Yeah.
food. Your body will tell you, listen, something's going on here, and it's all starting up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have to pay attention. I know I always feel it right here. I get these knots.
Yeah.
Or
shoulders.
in my stomach, and I'm like, all right, take a step back. Because
What
even
is
us as
causing
therapists, we experience it as well.
Yeah. Oh, you do? You guys are...
We're not robots.
You're not... You're human, is what you're saying. Well, and I feel like sometimes, therapists need their own therapist because a lot of...
Someone just asked, one of my clients just asked me this morning.
What?
She's like, do you have your own therapist? I was like, I do group supervision with my colleagues, and I love it.
Yeah, because you have to unpack what you've just dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to just... I can't imagine what it's like just... You can't just walk away from everything you've just had to deal with.
No, we need to process it as well.
Well, listen, it's Emerge Counseling and Coaching Center, and I did want to ask you about one other thing, because I know, we keep hearing things about human trafficking.
Yeah.
And we watch the movies like Taken, and you think, okay, that's what it is. Someone's going to snatch you from the airport and throw you into the sex slave trade. But talk a little bit about that, because I feel like most people don't really understand how grassroots and how close to home that really is.
Yeah, it's a heavy subject. Sex trafficking, human trafficking, it's happening under our nose. It's happening right amongst us. We don't realize it. It's, people gain access to our children, even young adults, and they start to groom them, right? Preparing them, getting them to trust them. And before you know it, they're being trafficked. And you know what? They become very well trained. Sometimes there's threats made, but it goes on for years and years. And it's happened. We've worked with a few situations in the past, and it's something that you need to be very aware of. It shouldn't be a conversation to avoid or ignore, because a lot of people think it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
Until it happens to you.
Until it happens, yeah.
Right?
And it happens so subtly. I mean,
yes.
And plus so many kids are on all these social media platforms that, they start making, pseudo friends, my friends that live here. And I mean, what can parents do? I mean, what would you suggest?
Having conversations, being aware, knowing who they're spending time with, right? Confirming that, recognizing if your kids are experiencing behavioral changes, sudden behavioral changes, the way they're dressing, the way they're eating, if there's sudden weight loss or weight gain, if you're seeing, unfortunately, any marks on their body, if there's potential self-harm or anything going on, but like the mood we want to, and sleep patterns we want to pay attention to
Yeah,
overall.
because again,
You know your kid best.
yeah, and the body will tell you.
Yeah.
Like they're the way they look at you, the way they react to you, the way
Mm-hmm.
they're at the dinner table or trying to avoid you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all little clues that oftentimes, you know, we just want to say, she's just going through a phase.
Sometimes people will think that it's just typical teenage behavior,
Yeah.
but take the moment to sit down with them, have the conversation with them. You won't regret it.
Right.
You're not going to regret having conversations with your kids,
Yeah.
right?
As difficult as it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. And plus, it also, you know, maybe not in the moment, but down the road, your kids will realize how much you love them to have those conversations.
Yeah.
That I hated you in the moment, but now in retrospect, I really appreciated that, you know, we were able to talk about that stuff.
Oh, my kid hates it when I sit down and talk to him. My 11-year-old's like, you guys are so annoying. And I say, you know what? You're going to love me. You're going to love me for this later on in life, because if and when you have kids one day, I know that you're going to be able to communicate with them.
Yeah.
I'll be that confident.
Well, again, it's Emerge, the Counseling and Coaching Center. It's emergecoachingnj.com.
Emerge Counseling.
Emerge Counseling.
NJ.
NJ.com.
Yeah.
And again, I'll put it down here. You'll see it down here. I'm going to put the phone number back up. Talk to Tanvi. Listen, just have a conversation. I mean, if there are things in your life that's just, you know, weighing on you, and you could feel it manifesting itself in pain and stress and anxiety and headaches, and you know, at least have the conversation. You know, call Tanvi up, have the conversation, and open that door. Even if you just open it a crack, you know, it's on the road to healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
And I might not be able to help you, but I can always refer you to someone who might be a better fit or better resources.
Oh, you just shouted out your friend up in Midland Park.
I know, Julia. There's so many of them. There's many, many more.
Yeah. So at least have the conversation and start the process, because it'll do you good, it'll do your family good, it'll do your children good, and you know, ultimately it'll do, it's like the ripple effect. You know, you're going to do.
You see the change.
Yeah.
It takes everyone.
Does that make you feel good when you see that progress?
That's the best part.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best part. When people ask, will I ever get better? I don't think I can get better. You know, because there's been such a repetitious pattern for so many years.
Yeah.
And then they start to see the change, and like, wow, I feel so much better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, thank you again so much
Thank
for
you
sharing.
for coming and taking the time.
And, you know, take some time and give Tanvi a call. And like she said, you know, it might not be for you, but at least you're starting the process. You know, you're taking baby steps.
Yeah.
You're taking the baby steps.
Small steps. Ease yourself.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
And wish everybody a healthy mental health. Is there a mental health month? I feel like there was.
May.
May is Mental Health Month?
Mental Health Awareness Month, yeah.
All right, so maybe we'll have you back. What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah, you come back for Mental Health Awareness Month? Maybe
Yes.
we'll do maybe we'll do your friend in Midland Park.
Yeah.
All right.
Julia, you're getting a lot of shout-outs.
You better be shouting her out, too.
No.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, be well, everybody.